I reach the edge of the flooded zone right after sunrise, when the light is flat and grey, and everything looks colder than it should in South Florida. I stop on a strip of higher pavement and just stand there for a second, breathing through my nose so I can separate smells. Rotting drywall, gasoline that soaked into soil and never burned off, stagnant water. It is quiet in the way places get quiet when people are gone, but not everything else is. A stop sign leans halfway into brown water. Mailboxes stick out like short posts in a lake. Houses sit a few feet above the surface. Front doors facing a street that does not exist anymore. Families lived in those homes 30 days ago. I remember seeing kids riding bikes here. I do not let my mind stay there long. If I stand still too long, something will hear me. The water is lower than it was during the first week. I can see the high mark on stucco walls, a thick line of dried mud about 3 feet above where it sits now. That tells me the government opened something or shut something down and let it flood fast, and then let it settle. I heard the distant blast back then, low thumps that carried through the air. I did not know what they were at first. Now I do. You do not need a news broadcast to understand when pumps stop and levees fail. Water does not rise that clean and that fast on its own. They made this belt on purpose. They wanted a buffer. They wanted roads unusable. They wanted movement slowed. They got all of that. They also got neighborhoods erased. I do not bring a vehicle this close. Engines travel too far. One door slam can pull a crowd from 200 yards away. I learned that in the first week when people were still arguing about what this was. I carry what I need on my back and nothing that rattles. My pack sits high and tight. My glasses are taped at the bridge and already fogging. I wipe them with my shirt and scan the water again. I spot the first infected person standing chest deep near a fence line. He is not floating. He is planted, feet on something solid below, arms hanging loose, head angled slightly as if he is listening to a voice I cannot hear. He does not move until a strip of plastic snaps in the wind. His head turns toward the sound. He does not look confused. He looks patient. Another infected person stands near a submerged sedan, hands resting on the roof, fingers curled. I watch the way he shifts. Not a lot. Small movements. He is conserving energy, if that is what it is. I do not know how long they keep moving. I have seen one still active after 10 days. I have seen one stop after what looked like a week. I have not found a pattern. I only know they respond to noise and motion. They are not fast unless they get a clear line and a reason. They do not drown the way people hoped. Water slows them, but does not end them. That mistake cost a lot of lives. I adjust the grip on my light axe. It is a short-handled hatchet I rebuilt myself, shaved down to keep it tight in corridors. I keep it sharp. I keep it clean. I know where to strike and how deep. I do not swing wild. If I have to engage, I do it close, controlled. One strike and back out. I wear gloves even when it is hot. I do not let fluid get on my skin. I learned that the hard way in the first days when a man I helped tried to stand and snapped at my arm. I had a jacket on. The fabric tore. My skin did not. That was enough to teach me not to take chances. The knives on my belt are tools first. I can throw one at short distance. Maybe 10 feet. Maybe less. But that is not a trick I rely on. Throwing means losing steel. Losing steel means fewer options later. Sawgrass Mills sits ahead, wide and low against the horizon, the same shape it always had but darker, dirtier, bent. I worked there for 3 years. I fixed watches and phones in a small kiosk under bright lights while music played, and people lined up to complain about cracked screens. I know the service corridors better than the main floor. I know which stairwells echo and which ones swallow sound. I know the loading docks and the maintenance doors that never sealed right. I also know the mall sits near drainage channels that connect to the bigger system. If something was built to stage emergency supplies during hurricane season, it would be somewhere below the service level, not advertised, not meant for shoppers. That thought has been in my head for days. I move along a raised median that keeps my boots mostly dry. Each step is placed, slow and deliberate. Mud pools at the soles when I misjudge depth. I stop often. I count to 10 in my head and listen. Far off, I hear a dull splash, and then a dragging sound, slow and heavy. I crouch behind a tilted concrete barrier and look toward it. 2 infected persons are moving through shallow water, bumping into each other without reacting. They do not look at one another. They do not correct course unless something makes noise. I stay low and wait until a gust of wind snaps a torn banner against a pole. Both heads turn toward the snap. I use that moment to shift position and move forward. The main entrance to the mall is wide and open, glass shattered, doors jammed halfway. That area is a funnel. I do not go near it. I cut toward the loading docks on the side, where delivery trucks used to back in before dawn. The water is ankle deep here. Every step makes a soft suction sound. I time my movement with the wind and distant flapping plastic so my noise blends. I keep my head down and my eyes up. A shopping cart floats upside down, caught against a curb. A mannequin torso bumps against a parking stop and rolls in the water. Little movements, little sounds. Any one of them can pull attention. I reach the loading dock doors and find one service door hanging crooked on its hinges, swollen from water and forced open early. I slide through with my axe tucked tight, shoulder turned so my pack does not snag. The air inside hits me fast, humid and stale. The corridor is dark except for weak daylight leaking through broken glass farther ahead. The floor is slick. I take 2 steps and stop, listening. I catch that low shuffle sound that always makes my neck tighten. Soft shoes dragging or bare feet scraping on grit. I angle my head and hear it in more than one direction. The mall is not empty. The flood did not clean it out. It only slowed movement and trapped bodies in places where sound carries. I move down the service hall toward the wider interior. I keep close to the wall and pick each step. Water lines mark everything. Brown stains on drywall, mud on door frames, a line of debris wedged into corners where current pushed it and then receded. I pass a break room with the door half open. I see a chair on its side and a vending machine tipped forward, its glass gone. Something shifts inside the room and a face turns toward my movement, pale and slack, eyes unfocused. I back away without touching the door. I do not swing. I do not rush. I let the infected person stay in the room and I keep my distance, slow enough that my boots do not squeak on the wet floor. The sound of shuffling grows as I get closer to the mall center. That makes sense. Open space pulls infected the same way open doors pull wind. I reach a threshold where service hallway becomes a wide back passage behind storefronts. The storefront shutters are bent, some ripped up from the bottom. I see hands pushing through one gap and then sliding back, fingers curling and uncurling. I do not look long. I use the dim light and the signage I remember. Left toward the old anchor store, right toward the main concourse. I go right, then stop hard when I hear a sudden wet splash ahead, followed by a chorus of dragging feet. Something else moved first. That means there are infected close enough to react to another infected. That means this area is packed. I crouch behind a kiosk frame and peer through the gaps toward the open center of the mall. The main atrium opens up in front of me, and my first thought is that the floor is gone. Not cracked, not damaged, gone. A massive hole eats the center of the concourse where people used to stand and watch car displays and seasonal exhibits. I remember the mall doing private car showcases, shiny vehicles under spotlights, banners hanging from the ceiling, staff in polos handing out flyers. Now the display space is a crater. Concrete has collapsed in slabs, dropping down several levels into a deep, jagged pit. Rebar sticks out at angles. Broken escalator parts hang over the edge. Around the hole, the mall looks staged and then abandoned. There is junk piled near the edge. Tool bags, crowbars, coils of rope, plastic tarps, empty water jugs, and a scatter of opened military-style boxes with foam inserts. Some boxes are shut and strapped. Others are torn open, their contents spilled or taken. 2 military trucks sit nearby inside the concourse, blackened and blistered by fire. One truck has a hood warped upward. Another truck's side panel is peeled back, and the floor around it is stained dark from old burn runoff. The smell is sharp and chemical, mixed with wet ash. Whatever happened here happened fast and hot. I keep low and scan for movement. Infected persons stand everywhere along the concourse perimeter, clustered near storefront entrances and pillars, heads angled towards small sounds. Some are ankle-deep in lingering puddles. Some stand on dry tile. None of them are lying down. That is the part that keeps messing with my expectations. I do not know what makes one slow down for good and another keep moving for weeks. I only know what stops them when I am forced to do it. I avoid that whenever I can. Fighting makes noise, and noise brings the whole building toward me. I edge closer to the hole, staying behind a line of toppled display fencing. I look down into the pit and my stomach tightens. Emergency lights glow below, green and white strips that should be dead, shining from a lower corridor that runs beneath the collapsed levels. The light comes from deep inside, not from the mall. I can see a series of concrete hallways down there, some half flooded, some dark, some lit. The edges of the hole are torn open enough that I can see into the structure of the building, layers of floor and service spaces exposed. A loose chunk of concrete shifts under my boot and taps another slab. The tap is small, but it rings. 3 infected heads snap toward me at once. I pull back fast, not running, but moving with purpose, and I tuck myself behind a column where the line of sight breaks. The infected persons start to drift toward the sound, slow but steady. More shapes appear from side hallways, drawn in by the echo. It is not a few, it is a lot. The mall has become a holding pen. I keep my breathing low, and I wait until the first cluster moves past my cover. Then I slide away along the outer ring where storefront shadows hide my movement. I count steps in my head to keep my pace even. I do not look back until I reach a darker service corridor and the sound of the concourse fades a little. I spend the next hours moving through the mall in small loops, learning what is safe and what is not. I find a maintenance closet with a mop bucket floating in old water and a shelf of cleaning supplies ruined by moisture. I find a pharmacy storefront with its gate bent and the interior trashed. I find sealed plastic containers that held bandages and gloves, some swollen from water, some intact. I take what is sealed. I leave the rest. I find a hardware kiosk display with hand tools scattered across the floor, and I pick out a compact pry bar and a roll of tape that feels dry. I keep my haul light. Heavy gear slows me, and slow turns into trapped. By late afternoon, I make it to where my kiosk used to be. I recognize the spot by the broken tile pattern and the remains of a sign frame bolted into the floor. The kiosk itself is smashed flat, torn apart, metal rails twisted, glass everywhere. My old tool drawers are gone. The little safe I used for cash is ripped out. A section of ceiling above it fell at some point and crushed what was left. I stand there for a moment with my axe hanging at my side, and my hands tighten without me telling them to. That place used to mean rent money and normal problems. Now it means nothing except that someone else already passed through and took what was easy. Night comes slow inside a building with no power. The mall has lost electricity from flooding, and everything that used to hum is dead. No music, no escalators, no air conditioning. Only the emergency glow down in that hole, pulsing faintly from below the collapsed floors. I find a small back office with one door, no windows, and a desk pushed against it. I wedge the door with a broken chair leg and set myself on the floor with my back to the wall. I do not sleep deep. Every sound pulls me up. A shuffle in the hallway, a thump far away, the scrape of something dragging across tile. I keep my headlamp off and use my pen light only when I have to check the door. Morning comes, and the mall feels worse in daylight because I can see the mess clearly. Water stains, mold patches, mud packed into corners. I eat a small portion of what I brought and drink carefully. I move again, slow and quiet, using the same routes, avoiding the concourse. I can hear infected persons in the open center even from far away, their feet dragging, their bodies bumping into fixtures, always reacting when a loose sign swings or debris shifts. The numbers do not feel smaller today. If anything, it sounds as if more have wandered in overnight from outside entrances. The mall keeps pulling them in. I circle back to the edge of the atrium in mid-morning, staying behind shuttered storefronts and broken display walls. The hole is still there, the emergency lights below still glowing, steady and unnatural against all the dead darkness around it. The burned military trucks sit where they sat, silent, blackened. The open boxes lie scattered near the edge, and I see more detail now. Printed labels, inventory markings, foam cutouts, straps. Someone staged supplies here, and then something hit hard enough to drop the floor out from under it. I look down again, and spot movement in the lit corridor below. Not a person walking with purpose. Infected persons. Several. They drift in and out of the emergency light, heads turning, bodies angled toward tiny sounds that echo up through the shaft. They are down there, deep in the building, trapped in a network of corridors that were never meant to be exposed. I back away and press my shoulder against a wall, thinking with my hands clenched around the axe handle. I do not know how long infected persons keep moving. I do not know if heat slows them, if hunger slows them, if water changes them. I only know how to avoid getting touched and how to keep fluid off my skin. I know how to end an infected person when I have no other choice. And I know that doing it wrong pulls 5 more into the same hallway. I look at the hole again, at the light below, and I feel the pull of it in my gut. That light means power. Power means charging. Radios, tools, doors that lock. Maybe pumps. Maybe something that can give me a stable corner in a region that has none. I wait until the infected persons near my side of the concourse drift away toward a distant clatter. Then I move closer to the edge of the collapse. I lie flat on my stomach and peer down, measuring distance with my eyes. Tracing a route across broken slabs and twisted metal. I spot a hanging maintenance ladder, bent but reachable. I spot a concrete lip that could take weight if it does not crumble. I can also see standing water down there, dark and still, pooled around doorways. The corridors run off in more than one direction. The emergency lights outline them in sharp strips, and every strip of light makes the shadows look deeper. Infected persons move through those shadows in small groups, slow and quiet until something taps or drips, and then they turn as one. I keep my face close to the tile and watch the corridor below, until my eyes stop trying to turn every shadow into motion. The emergency lights down there do not blink. They hold steady. A thin green-white glow that makes the wet concrete shine. That kind of steady light means a real circuit, not a dying battery. It also means sound travels. If the lights have been on for weeks, infected persons have had weeks to drift toward that glow and settle into roots that pass through it. I keep my breathing shallow, and I do not let my knees scrape the floor as I shift backward from the edge. I crawl behind a pile of broken signage and torn fencing, moving inch by inch so my belt does not clink against metal. I stop when I feel a vibration through the tile, a slow bump that comes from the concourse. An infected person hits something hard enough to send a faint tremor. I wait until the sound pattern changes and the bumps move away. I do not want a cluster standing near the hole when I start down. If even one infected person leans over the edge and drops something, it will pull everything below toward the noise, and I will be halfway on a ladder with nowhere to go. I reach the area where the maintenance ladder hangs. It is not a clean ladder bolted to a wall. It is part of a service structure that used to sit under the display platform, now torn loose and bent at the top. The rungs are still there. The metal looks stressed. I test the first rung with my boot. Light pressure, then more. It holds. I put my left hand on the rung and feel cold water slick on the metal. I wipe my palm on my pants and grip again. My axe stays in my right hand for now. I cannot climb well with it, but I also cannot risk setting it down up here. I shift my weight onto the ladder. The metal creaks, not loud, but loud enough that my chest tightens. I freeze and listen. Above me, somewhere in the concourse, a faint shuffle stops, then resumes. Below me, I hear a soft scrape in the corridor, then silence. The sound I made traveled. Nothing rushed. That tells me infected persons down there are not in a sprint mode yet. They are waiting for more cues. I start down, slow and careful, one rung at a time, keeping my boots centered so I do not twist the ladder. The air changes as I descend. It gets cooler and heavier. The smell shifts from moldy retail space to wet concrete, old smoke, and stored plastic. About halfway down, I see that the drop is deeper than I first thought. The floor below is not just one level down. The mall's center collapsed through multiple levels, leaving a hollow shaft with exposed beams and broken escalator parts hanging into space. I do not look down for long. Looking down pulls the body into bad balance. I keep my eyes on the next rung and the wall beside me. When my boots reach a concrete lip, I step off the ladder onto a narrow ledge. The ledge is part of a broken floor slab, jagged at the edge and slick with damp grit. I crouch and keep one hand on the ladder while I test the ledge with my other foot. It holds my weight. I shift my pack higher and move sideways along the lip until I can see into the corridor line. The emergency lights are mounted along the ceiling in strips. Some are cracked. Some have water stains. All of them are on. The corridor floor has a thin layer of water that reflects the light and makes it hard to judge depth. An infected person stands about 20 feet away, under the nearest light strip. The body is angled toward me, but the head is turned slightly to the left, listening to a drip somewhere deeper down the hall. The skin looks pale under the light, with dark streaks from old mud and smoke. Clothing hangs heavy and wet at the hem. The infected person does not move fast. He sways a little, slow and steady, feet planted. Behind him, another infected person stands closer to a doorway, hands pressed against the frame as if he tried to enter and forgot why. I stay still until my muscles start to tremble from holding position. Movement draws eyes. Sound draws bodies. I need a way to get into that corridor without walking straight into the lit strip where the infected persons stand. I scan for a side route. To my right, a broken service hatch has fallen inward, leaving a gap into a darker passage that runs parallel to the lit corridor. The hatch opening is low. Crawling makes noise if I rush. Crawling also keeps me out of the main line. I slide my pack off one shoulder, lower it gently, then lower myself onto my stomach and push into the gap. The passage inside is tighter than I like. It smells of wet insulation and old dust. My elbows scrape concrete, and I pause every few inches to keep the scrape from turning into a steady sound. I keep the axe tucked under my forearm and move it forward with me so it does not catch. After a short crawl, the passage opens into a maintenance corridor with a low ceiling and pipes running along the wall. Water has pooled here too, but shallow. My boots land with a soft splash. I freeze again, listening for reaction in the lit corridor beyond. A shuffle answers, then another. Slow, no rushing. I exhale through my nose and keep moving. I can see the lit corridor through a great opening ahead. I can also see a door on my side that is partly open. The door has a thick frame and a seal line, not a normal interior door. That door style belongs to something built to close. That makes my skin prickle. I move toward it and keep my pen light off. The emergency glow leaks in enough to see the handle. I stop at the door and listen through the crack. Nothing. No breathing. No scrape. I nudge it with my boot. It swings inward an inch and stops against something. I press the door gently with 2 fingers. It gives, then bumps again. The sound is soft, but inside the room something shifts with it. A low foot drag, close. I step back fast and hold the axe up without raising it high. I do not want an overhead swing in a narrow corridor. The door moves again, pushed from inside. A hand appears in the gap, fingers curling around the edge. I move sideways and put my shoulder against the wall to keep my balance. The infected person inside presses toward the gap. The door opens another inch, then sticks again on whatever is blocking it. I see part of a face through the gap, eyes unfocused, mouth open. The infected person makes a wet sound and pushes. The door does not give. Something heavy is against it from the outside. Maybe a fallen cabinet. I do not try to free it. I do not want that infected person loose in the corridor I am using. I back away, step by step, keeping my feet quiet, and the infected person keeps pressing at the door, trapped in that narrow slice. I reach the great opening and look through into the lit corridor again. The infected persons out there have drifted a few steps toward my general direction, not because they saw me, because they heard the door bump. The distance is smaller now, maybe 15 feet. If I step out there, they will catch the movement in the light and close in. I need to pull them away. I reach into my tool pouch and find a small metal nut, heavier than the washer I used upstairs. I hold it in my fingertips and aim down the maintenance corridor behind me, away from the lit hall. I flick it hard into the dark. It clacks against a pipe and rings once. The infected persons in the lit corridor react in a slow chain. First a head turns, then shoulders angle, then feet drag toward the sound. Not fast, but committed. I wait until both bodies shift away from the direction I need. Then I slide through the great opening and step into the lit corridor with my body low. The water on the floor is deeper here, up to my ankles. It makes a faint slosh no matter how careful I am. I keep moving anyway, using the echo of the pipe ring as cover. The corridor walls are concrete with painted stripes and old signage. Some signs have arrows and numbers that do not match the mall above. This place was built beneath the mall, not part of normal retail. I pass a panel that says emergency staging in faded block letters. I pass a door labeled supply. Another door labeled communications. That catches my eye. I keep going past it for now because the infected persons are not far. I do not want to stand under bright light and fumble with a latch. At the first side intersection, I turn into a narrower corridor where the lights are dimmer and one strip is half burned out. The floor here slopes and the water deepens to mid-shin in places. I move with my knees loose so I do not stumble. Water makes everything slow, and slow makes me feel exposed. Behind me, the infected persons keep drifting toward the pipe ring sound, and I hear their feet drag through water with small splashes. They are not chasing. They are hunting by sound the way they always do. I reach a doorway that leads into a room full of stacked plastic bins and metal shelving. Some shelves are toppled. Boxes float in a corner pool. A few bins are sealed and sitting on higher racks. Dry. I step into the room and close the door gently behind me until it rests, not latched, enough to block the corridor light. I stand still and listen through the crack between door and frame. The infected persons pass by outside, not stopping, still guided by the earlier sound. That buys me minutes. I start scanning the room. This is a supply cache, not a fantasy warehouse, a real disaster cache with things that matter and things that are ruined. Cardboard is swollen and soft. Paper labels have bled ink. Metal tools have surface rust. But there are sealed cases too. Plastic totes with gasket lids. Vacuum-packed bundles. A few hard cases with foam inserts that kept contents from shifting. I kneel beside a tote on a low shelf and wipe mud off the lid with my sleeve so I can read the label. Water purification tablets. Some might be compromised. Some might be fine. I cannot know without checking packaging. I pop the lid slowly and look inside. Individual packs are sealed. That is usable. I take 2 sealed packs and put them in my bag. I do not take everything. Taking everything slows me and makes noise when I move. I grab a pair of heavy gloves in a sealed bag and tuck those too. I find a small roll of caution tape and take it. Tape can mark routes and warn me in low light. I find a compact hand pump still in plastic wrap, and I stare at it for a second, then take it. If this bunker stays flooded, pumping will decide whether I can hold a dry corner. I hear a sound at the door, a soft bump, then a scrape. Not a handle turning, a body contacting the door. I freeze, one hand on the tote lid. I do not breathe deep. The scrape comes again, closer, and a wet grunt follows. An infected person is outside, drawn by the slight sounds I made shifting supplies. I step back from the shelves and move to the side of the door, putting myself out of the straight path if the door opens. The door bumps again, harder. I grip the axe. The door swings inward an inch and stops against the edge of a fallen shelf that blocks it. The infected person presses into the gap. Fingers appear, then a shoulder. The shelf keeps the door from opening more. That shelf is now a barrier I did not plan. I keep still and let the infected person struggle with it. The infected person makes small noises, then stops and listens. I do not move. After a long moment, the infected person drifts away, feet dragging through water, drawn by other sounds in the corridor. My shoulders loosen a fraction. I do not stay in the supply room. Staying turns into comfort, and comfort turns into mistakes. I step back into the corridor and move toward the communications door I saw earlier. As I approach, I see the door has a rubber seal and a metal latch. That seal matters. It means the room was meant to stay dry. If I can find one dry sealed room, I can sleep without water soaking my clothes and turning my skin raw. I place my ear near the door. No movement sound. No drip. I turn the latch slowly. The door opens with a soft suction sound, and I slip inside. The room is small, with a desk bolted to the floor, and racks along one wall. Most equipment is gone or torn out. Wires hang from a panel where something used to be mounted. A cabinet stands in the corner with its door closed. The air in here is cooler and drier than the corridor. I look up and see a ceiling vent that looks newer than the mall above. That means this bunker has its own air handling. If any part of it still runs, that is a reason the lights are still on. I shut the door until it catches. Not locked, enough to reduce sound. Then I look at the wall panel near the desk. A small indicator light is on, steady green. That makes no sense at first because the mall above has no power. Flooding killed everything up there. But down here, something is feeding a low draw system, emergency circuits. Maybe battery, maybe solar, maybe a feeder line from outside the flood belt. I do not touch the panel yet. Touching panels is how people end up in darkness in the wrong place. I check the cabinet and open it carefully. Inside are sealed bundles of batteries in plastic, some swollen, some intact. A small hand crank radio still in packaging. A roll of heavy-duty trash bags. A first aid kit in a hard case. The case seal looks intact. I take the first aid case and put it in my pack. I take the trash bags and fold them tight. Plastic can block water and can catch rain if I get out. I leave the radio for now. If I crank a radio in this bunker, the sound could travel. Sound pulls infected persons. Everything comes back to sound. A faint tapping reaches me through the door, then a soft scrape. Infected persons are still moving outside. Not one. More. The sound pattern is scattered, coming from both directions. That means there are infected persons throughout the corridor network, not just a small cluster near the hole. The idea of this place being empty is gone now. This bunker is occupied by the same problem as the mall above, only tighter, with water and walls that bounce sound back at me. I stay in the communications room until I can think without my hands shaking. Then I move again, back into the corridor, keeping my steps slow and placing my feet flat to reduce splashes. I follow the corridor towards signs that read staging and medical. The medical corridor is partly blocked by debris. A door stands open at the end, and water has pooled beyond it, deeper and darker. I see a faint reflection in that water, and then I see the source. Another emergency light strip glows down there too. The light reaches farther into the bunker than I first thought. I reach a junction where 3 corridors meet. One corridor slopes downward and is fully flooded past a few yards. I can see the water line rising up the wall, and the light from the ceiling strip fades into that water gloom. Another corridor runs flat and dry for a short stretch before it bends. The third corridor runs back toward the collapse shaft. I stand at that junction and listen. From the flooded corridor, I hear a faint slosh that is not mine. Something moved in there. Not fast, not splashing hard, just enough to disturb water. An infected person can stand in waist-deep water and wait. If Mars steps into that corridor, the noise will be loud and he will be slow. I do not go down that way. I take the dry corridor. The walls here have insulation panels that look newer and cleaner, as if this sector was built to keep temperature stable. Some panels are warped from moisture, some are intact. That tells me the bunker is divided. Some sectors were sealed better than others. A door ahead has a sign that reads power control. My heart rate climbs. If I can find the power source, I can decide whether the lights will last another day or another hour. But the door is close to a bend where I cannot see beyond. I stop and listen. A slow drag comes from around the corner, then another. Not close enough to see, close enough to know I am not alone. I do not have space to swing wide in this corridor. I step back toward the junction and look for something I can use as a distraction. On the wall is a loose metal conduit cover, hanging by one screw. I pinch it and pull it free slowly so it does not clatter. I hold it in my hand and feel the weight. If I toss it down the far corridor, it will make a loud ring. Loud ring means infected persons drift that way. Loud ring also means other infected persons might drift toward it too. I accept that trade. I toss the conduit cover down the flooded corridor mouth, aiming for a pipe. It hits metal and rings sharp. The sound bounces through the bunker. I hate the sound the moment it happens. It is too clean. It is too loud. I stand still and listen to the response. The dragging around the corner stops, then shifts. I hear multiple feet moving, slow at first, then faster than I like. Not running, but purposeful. I move toward the power control door while the infected persons drift toward the loud ring. The power control door is shut. The latch is stiff. I turn it slowly and pull the door open just enough to see inside. The room holds electrical panels, battery cabinets, and a wall-mounted inverter unit with indicator lights. Several lights are on. A low hum fills the room, steady, not loud. The air is warmer here, a dry heat that comes from electronics running. That heat is proof. Something is feeding this system. I slip inside and close the door behind me until it rests. I take my time reading the panel labels. Emergency lighting circuit, ventilation low, communications low, charging outlets limited. The labels are printed, not handwritten. This bunker was planned. Beneath the panels are battery cabinets with warning stickers. I crouch and touch the cabinet surface with the back of my hand. It is warm. Batteries have been charging or discharging. There is a log sheet clipped to a board, and the entries stop early in the outbreak. Handwriting gets shaky at the end. One note says, "Load shedding enabled." Another note says, "Do not open Sector 4." Another note says, "Water intrusion from service trench." I stare at the note about Sector 4. It is the first time I see a direct warning that someone tried to manage this place after the flooding. Someone was here. Someone had access to panels and a plan. That person did not leave a cozy camp. That person left a bunker full of infected persons and water and sealed sectors. I look at the inverter and follow the conduit lines with my eyes. One conduit runs up and out through a sealed pass-through. That likely feeds from above, or from a separate utility line. Solar is possible. A feeder line from outside the flood belt is possible too. I do not know which one yet. I do not touch any switches. A heavy thump hits the door from the corridor side, then another, closer together. Infected persons found the sound trail. Either the conduit ring drew them close and now they drift back, or another sound pulled them toward this sector. I put my hand on the door and feel it vibrate. The latch holds. The door seal holds. That is good, but I do not want to stay trapped in a tiny power room with one exit if infected persons cluster outside and keep bumping. Clustered infected persons make it hard to slip out quietly. I scan the room for another way out and spot a narrow service hatch in the back wall, likely a cable chase. The hatch is closed with 4 screws. I do not have time to remove 4 screws silently. The thumps continue, now with scraping. The infected persons are pressing in. I cannot let them keep doing that. If the door fails, this room becomes a corner. Corners are where people get pinned. I pull my pack off and set it on the floor, then reach into it for my tape roll and the caution tape. My hands move fast but careful. I lay a strip of tape over the door latch mechanism, not to seal the door, to reduce rattle. Then, I take a small piece of cloth from my pocket and wedge it between the door and frame on the hinge side, where the door vibrates. Anything to dull sound. I do not expect this to stop a crowd, but it can keep small impacts from turning into loud bangs that attract more. The thumps slow. The scraping continues, then pauses. I stand still for a long moment, eyes on the door handle, waiting for another impact. Instead, I hear dragging feet move away. The infected persons drift. Sound is the leash again. They came for noise, and without noise they lose interest. That is my opening. I pick up my pack and step to the door. I open it 2 inches and look out. 2 infected persons stand in the corridor a few feet away, facing the door, heads tilted, not moving, waiting. I close the door again without letting it click. I lean my forehead against the cool metal for 1 second and force myself to think. I need a safe place to stage, a room with 1 door, preferably sealed, where I can sleep and work. I also need a route map. If I blunder into a flooded sector or a cluster zone, I will not get a second chance. I step back to the panel wall and look for any map, any posted schematic. There is a folded sheet in a plastic sleeve taped to the wall. I pull it free slowly and unfold it. It is a bunker layout map, 4 sectors. The power room is in Sector 2. The collapse shaft access is Sector 1. Medical staging is Sector 3. Sector 4 is marked sealed. There are notes about floodgates and sump pumps. I trace the map with my fingertip and pick a path that avoids the corridor where the two infected persons stand. There is a storage room connected to the power room corridor. One door, likely sealed. If I can get in there, I can wait out clusters and decide next moves. But I have to cross a short stretch of lit corridor first. Lit corridors expose movement. I need another distraction, one that is not as loud as that conduit ring. I reach into my pouch and pull out a small plastic cap and a metal screw. I roll the screw across the floor inside the power room, not tossing it, rolling it out the door crack so it taps lightly in the corridor. The screw clicks on concrete. One infected head turns toward it. The infected person takes 2 slow steps toward the sound. The second infected person follows. I open the door and slip out in the opposite direction, moving low and quick, keeping my boots flat to reduce splashes. I turn the corner and reach the storage door shown on the map. The door has a seal and a latch. I open it and step inside, then pull it shut until it catches. The storage room is cluttered but mostly dry. Plastic-wrapped cots stacked against a wall. Boxes of protective suits, many ruined by moisture, some intact. Cases of bottled water, some cases collapsed, bottles floating in a corner pool. A raised shelf holds sealed food bars in foil packs. Another shelf holds rolls of cable, zip ties, and a small crate of hand tools. I sit on the floor and keep my back against the wall, axe across my lap, and listen to the corridor outside. The infected persons drift past, dragging feet, bumping walls now and then. A dozen sounds overlap. That tells me the bunker is filled with them. Not 2, not 5, a lot. I do not stay sitting. Sitting turns into freezing. I start working quietly. I open one foil pack and eat slow, small bites. I drink from my own bottle, not trusting the bunker water yet. Then I pull out the caution tape and mark the inside of the storage room door with a strip at eye level. A simple marker, so if I return in darkness, I know this is my room. I also tie a short strip of tape to the door handle on the corridor side, a silent indicator. If the tape is torn later, it means something or someone pushed that handle. Time crawls. I cannot tell how long I sit listening. 10 minutes. Maybe more. I can feel my own heartbeat in my hands. The corridor noise shifts. The cluster moves away, then back, then away again, guided by distant drips and small building noises. The bunker is alive in a mechanical way. Pipes tick, water drips. A vent fan somewhere spins at a low speed, making a faint whir. That fan might be running on the same emergency circuit as the lights. If ventilation is still on, this place was meant to stay habitable. When the corridor falls quiet enough, I stand and start sorting the room. I pull sealed items to one side, damaged items to another. I find a handcart folded against the wall. The wheels are stiff but usable. Moving supplies one by hand will wear me down and make me clumsy. I unfold the cart slowly and test the wheels in place. One wheel squeaks. I pinch the wheel hub and feel grit. I search the tool crate and find a small bottle of oil. I drip one drop into the hub and spin the wheel with my fingers until the squeak stops. Quiet wheels mean I can move without dragging noise behind me. I make my first short run from the storage room back toward the supply cache room I found earlier. I do it in steps. Open door a crack. Listen. Slip out. Close it again without clicking. Move 10 yards. Stop. Listen. The corridor water makes tiny sounds no matter what. I keep my pace steady and avoid sudden changes. I reach the supply room door and see the fallen shelf still blocks the door. That is good. It keeps the infected person inside trapped. I slip into the supply room through the gap and take 2 more sealed water tablet packs, 2 sealed glove packs, and a roll of heavy plastic sheeting. I put them on the cart and wheel the cart back, moving slow so the wheels do not splash. Halfway back, I hear a sound ahead that makes my skin go tight. A wet foot dragging through deeper water, closer than the normal drags, followed by a low throat noise. I stop behind a corner and peek around it. 2 infected persons stand in the corridor, one facing the storage room direction, one facing mine. The one facing mine is close enough that if I step out, he will catch movement. I cannot go around. I cannot wait too long, because waiting means the infected persons might drift toward the cart and bump it. I take a knife from my belt, the chipped one, and hold it low. I do not aim to throw at a body. I aim at a wall farther down the corridor behind the infected persons. I flick the knife with a short motion, not full force, enough to make it strike and clatter. The knife hits concrete and falls with a sharp ring. Both infected heads snap toward the sound. Both bodies pivot. They start moving toward the clatter. I do not waste the moment. I pull the cart backward 2 feet, then angle it through the corner and keep moving toward the storage room, staying out of their line. When I reach the storage room, I pull the cart inside and shut the door. I breathe out slow through my nose and retrieve my knife later only if I can do it safely. Losing one knife hurts, but getting trapped in a corridor hurts more. I start stacking supplies in a neat line against one wall. I keep track in my head: water tablets, gloves, plastic sheeting, first aid, a few food bars. Not enough to live forever. Enough to stabilize me for days if I can keep a dry corner. I spend the next hours learning the bunker in short controlled pushes, never pushing far enough that I lose my safe room. I mark corners with small strips of tape. I note where water deepens. I note where infected persons cluster. I find a stairwell that slopes upward toward the collapse shaft access, but the stairs are partly collapsed and the upper landing is blocked by debris. That stairwell is a potential escape route if I need to retreat fast. I also find a hallway that leads toward medical staging, and it is full of infected persons standing in knee-deep water, shoulder to shoulder in places, packed near doorways. I do not go there. I back away and mark that corridor on my map as red. As the day goes on, I start noticing patterns. The infected persons drift towards sound and light, and then stall. The emergency lights create a slow traffic line. A drip line creates a slow traffic line. When something bangs, a wave of bodies shifts toward it. When silence returns, the bodies spread out again and stand. That means I can move if I control sound and stay out of open light strips. It also means one mistake can fill my corridor with bodies in minutes. Late in the day, I decide I need to confirm one thing: where the power is coming from. If it is battery only, it will die. If it is solar, it might last, but only if panels are intact and not shaded. If it is a feeder line, it might cut out without warning. I return to the power room, using my quiet screw roll trick to pull infected persons away, and slip in. I stand in front of the panels and look for any indicator of charge state. There is a small display with a bar. The bar shows a medium level, not full, not empty. That suggests cycling. That suggests charging occurs sometimes. I follow the conduit again with my eyes to the sealed pass-through. I touch the pass-through housing. It is cool. No vibration. I cannot tell much. I notice another line labeled rooftop feed, but it is behind a locked cover plate. Rooftop feed. That points to solar. It could also point to something else on the roof. I do not force the plate. Forcing plates makes noise, and noise pulls infected persons. Instead, I decide the next step. I need a route upward to the roof access inside the mall, not through the main entrance, not through the concourse, but through service stairs. I know some stairwells exist. If I can reach one and confirm solar panels or a roof generator, I can plan. That is when I hear the sound that changes the temperature in my chest. Not a bump, not a scrape. A heavy crash from far away, echoing through concrete and metal. It comes from the direction of the collapse shaft. Then another crash, followed by a wave of shuffling that rises all at once. Dozens of feet dragging through water and corridors as bodies reorient toward that new sound. That sound was not a drip. That sound was large. Something fell, something broke, or something entered. I stand in the power room with my hand on the door and listen. The shuffling becomes a constant movement noise, a slow rush. The infected persons are not sprinting, but the bunker is full of them, and when they all start moving at once, corridors clog. If the main corridors clog, my safe room becomes a box. I step out and see the corridor already shifting. Infected persons appear from the bend, water sloshing around their legs, shoulders hunched forward. One infected person bumps the wall hard and keeps moving. Another bumps a door and leaves a wet smear. Their heads angle toward the collapse shaft sound. I move with the flow but stay near the wall, using the infected persons as moving cover. I do not want to be seen as a separate moving target. I keep my eyes on their shoulders and feet, reading where they drift. I keep my breathing shallow. If I panic and move fast, I will stand out. If I stand out, hands will reach. If hands reach, there is no clean outcome. At the next junction, I slip into my storage room corridor before the bodies fill it. I shut the door and brace it with the cart, not to hold off a siege, to reduce accidental bumps from outside. I sit on the floor with the axe across my lap and listen to the bunker fill with motion. The sound lasts a long time, minutes, maybe longer. Then it begins to fade in waves as the infected persons settle closer to the collapse shaft. Whatever made that crash pulled the whole bunker toward that point. That is good and bad. Good because my sector gets quieter. Bad because the crash might have opened a path, and anything new down there changes everything. When the corridor outside quiets enough, I stand and check my supplies again. I do not have the luxury of staying hidden forever. The bunker is full of infected persons. The mall above is full of infected persons. The only advantage I have is that I can think and I can move with discipline. The crash came from the direction of the hole. That hole is also my route up. If infected persons are clustered there now, I might be trapped below. I cannot accept that without checking. I wait. I count slow in my head. I listen for any fresh sound that suggests a person moving with intent. I hear none. I hear only the slow drift and occasional bump of infected persons repositioning. I decide to move. I leave the storage room with my pack light and my axe ready. I follow my tape markers back toward the collapse access corridor, moving in short bursts, stopping at corners, never stepping into a light strip without checking the shadows first. As I get closer, the smell changes. More smoke, more wet ash. That matches the burned trucks above. That means the collapse shaft is not only open space, it is a chimney for smells and sound. I reach the last corner and peek out. The corridor ahead is crowded with infected persons. Not a small cluster, a mass. Bodies stand in the shallow water, shoulder to shoulder, facing the direction of the shaft. Some sway, some press forward, some bump walls and each other. The emergency lights outline them in bands, making their movements easy to see. In the middle of that mass, one infected person turns his head toward my corner, not fully seeing me, but reacting to the tiny sound of my boot shifting. That head turn triggers others. 3 heads angle my way. 5. The mass does not surge, but the nearest few start to drift toward me, slow and steady. I back away without turning my back, keeping my steps quiet, and I retreat down the corridor before they can close distance. I do not try to cut through them. Cutting through would mean contact. Contact is how this ends. I back away until the light strip above me is behind a wall bend, and my shadow is gone from the corridor. My boots make a thin slosh in the shallow water no matter how careful I am, and every slosh feels loud. I keep my shoulders low and my eyes up, tracking the direction the closest infected persons drift. Their feet drag in a slow rhythm. Their heads angle toward where I was, then toward where the larger mass is pressing. They do not sprint, but they do not forget sound fast either. I keep moving until the corridor turns, and the noise from the crowd becomes muffled. I stop at a junction and press my back to the wall. My chest rises and falls tight. I do not let myself gulp air. Gulping makes noise. I listen for a change in the footsteps behind me. I hear a few shuffles follow, then slow, then stop. The infected persons near my corner lost the direct cue. They stall and sway. They do not leave the corridor. They also do not rush me yet. I keep my axe in my right hand and my left hand on the wall so I do not slip. The path back to my storage room is clear enough, but going back means staying boxed in while the crowd remains near the collapse shaft. The crowd blocks the ladder route up. If the crowd stays, I am trapped below ground. If the crowd shifts, I need a way to move without crossing open lit corridors. I pull the folded bunker map out and flatten it against my thigh. Sector 1 runs to the collapse access. Sector 2 holds power and storage. Sector 3 is medical staging. Sector 4 is sealed, marked with warnings. There is a maintenance crawl line skirting the edge of Sector 4. It is the only path on the map that avoids the main corridor where the crowd is now clustered. I move toward the maintenance crawl route, keeping close to the wall and stepping only on the higher ridges where the floor is less flooded. The corridor lighting stays steady, but the hum from overhead strips makes the space feel awake. In the distance, the crowd noise rises again. A wave of shuffling and bumping. Something drew more infected persons toward the shaft. It could be debris settling. It could be a body falling from above. It could be wind pushing a hanging sign. I do not wait to find out. I keep moving. The crawl route entrance is a low hatch set into a wall panel, the kind maintenance crews use to access cable trays and drain lines. The hatch door is bent and partly open, its latch broken. That tells me someone forced it at some point. I crouch and aim my penlight into the gap for half a second. The beam catches pipes, insulation, and a shallow run of water moving along the bottom, slow and dark. It looks passable. It also looks narrow enough that swinging an axe would be hard. I pull one knife free and hold it in my left hand, blade down, not for throwing, for close control if something is in the crawl space with me. I slide into the hatch opening feet first, lowering my pack after me so it does not scrape. My boots touch shallow water, and the cold pushes through the leather. The crawl space is low enough that I have to keep my head turned. My glasses fog fast. I wipe them with my sleeve and keep moving. Pipes run along the ceiling, and water drips from a joint every few seconds, steady and slow. That drip sound has likely pulled infected persons in this direction before, so I pause often and listen for any drag or breath that is not mine. I hear nothing but the drip and the faint hum from somewhere farther off. After a short crawl, the space widens into a narrow service trench with a grated walkway along one side. The grate holds my weight, but it flexes slightly and makes a tiny metallic tick. I freeze and wait. No response. I step again, slower, placing my boot over a thicker cross brace. The water below the grate is darker here, deeper, and I cannot see the bottom. The smell shifts too, less mold, more stagnant. This might be one of the lines that carried floodwater into the bunker. I follow the trench until I reach a spot where the corridor wall is cut away into a small maintenance nook. A plastic bin sits on a shelf above the waterline, dusty and dry. That catches my attention. Dust means no water reached that shelf. Dry means supplies might still be intact. I pull myself up and open the bin slowly. Inside are zip ties, a roll of cloth tape, 2 disposable respirator masks in sealed plastic, and a small hand tool kit. I take the masks and the tape. I leave the rest for now. I do not need more weight. I need options. The trench bends, and ahead the air turns colder. A faint breeze brushes my face. Light but real. That breeze means airflow. Airflow means a vent path. Maybe a connection to the surface or a running fan pulling air through. If ventilation is active, power is more than a few emergency strips. I keep moving toward the breeze, careful not to splash. I stop when I hear a low scrape ahead, slow and irregular, not the constant drip. I kill my light and hold still. The scrape repeats, closer now, then stops. I shift my weight back and press my shoulder against the trench wall to make space. My knife stays in my left hand, held close. The scrape returns. Then I see the shape. An infected person is in the trench ahead, half submerged in water below the grate, arms hooked over the edge. His head lifts and turns toward the faint glow coming from behind me. He cannot stand fully because the water is deep and the trench walls are tight. He drags his body forward by his arms, making the scrape. He is not fast. He is also in my path. I do not swing the axe in here. The space is too tight, and if the head lodges or the handle catches, I lose the tool. I also do not try to stab from above with a long reach. Leaning over puts my face close. Close means risk. I back away a few feet until I find a loose piece of metal conduit lying on a shelf. I lift it and set it down gently so it does not ring. I slide it forward with my boot until it hangs over the water. Then, I push it off the shelf to drop into the water on the far side of the infected person. It hits the water with a heavy splash. The infected person turns toward the splash and drags that direction, arms scraping metal. It is not a clean distraction. The scrape continues, but it moves away from me. I use that shift to slip past along the opposite side, keeping my shoulder against the wall, moving slowly so I do not bump him. His hand reaches toward the great edge near my boot. I pull my boot back and keep moving, eyes locked on the hand. The hand misses and slaps water. The slap sound travels. I keep going anyway. A chorus answers from far away, faint at first, then building. The slap and scrape carried through the trench and into other corridors. I hear more feet dragging now, and I know what that means. The crawl route is not a secret passage. It is a channel that carries sound into the bunker. I need to get out of the trench before the sound pulls a cluster into the narrow sections behind me. I increase my pace, not running, but moving with commitment, placing my boots with less hesitation. The trench ends at a grated door that opens into a concrete room with a low ceiling and a single emergency strip light. The strip light is on, but dimmer than the main corridor lights. I push the door and it squeals. The squeal hits my nerves hard. I freeze, then push it again, forcing it open faster so the squeal ends. The moment I step into the room, I pull the door shut. It does not latch properly. I wedge it with my axe handle for 1 second while I look for something better. I spot a broken cinder block on the floor and set it against the door base. It is not a lock, it is friction. It will slow an accidental push and reduce rattling. The room smells of wet electrical insulation and old metal. It looks like a pump control space or a utility access node. Pipes run along one wall into the floor. A panel box sits high on the other wall, shut. A red stencil on the wall reads Sector 4 boundary. That puts me right where I wanted to be, and right where I did not want to be. Sector 4 is sealed for a reason. Sealed sectors in this bunker are not a puzzle, they are a warning. I move to the wall panel and put my ear near it before touching anything. No hum, no ticking relay. I open it slowly. Inside are breakers labeled Sump 1, Sump 2, Gate Control, and Ventilation Damper. 2 breakers are in the on position, 2 are off. A small indicator light glows faint green near the ventilation damper label. That tells me at least part of ventilation control is live here too. The sump breakers are off. That might explain why water still sits in the trench and corridors. It might also be off on purpose, either failed or shut down to prevent something worse. I do not flip anything yet. Flipping a breaker can wake a pump, and a pump starting in a flooded system can make a loud mechanical roar. Loud means the crowd shifts. Loud means infected persons converge. Loud also means power draw spikes, and if power is limited, other circuits might drop. I stand there and think through the options with my hands on the panel edge. I need water lower in my sector, but I also need quiet. I need a pump that can run in short bursts without screaming. Before I decide, a new sound hits the bunker, deeper than before, followed by a tremor that I feel through the soles of my boots. Something above just moved, heavy, structural. The tremor is small, but real. Dust shakes loose from the ceiling and drifts down in a thin cloud. The utility room light flickers once, then steadies. That flicker changes my breathing. If the power flickers now, it can flicker again when I am in a corridor with no light. Then comes a sound I did not expect down here. Distant voices, not close enough to catch words, but human voice tone and rhythm coming from above through the collapse shaft. It is faint and broken by walls, but it is there. At least one person is up in the mall, near the hole, talking. That is the worst kind of sound to have in this building. Human voices carry far. Human voices rise and fall and draw attention. The infected persons will drift toward it in steady waves. The crowd near the shaft will tighten. The corridors will clog again. I step away from the panel and press my ear to the concrete wall, trying to judge direction. The voices echo through the structure. I hear one sharper sound, metal on metal, a bang that repeats twice. Someone above is using tools or moving debris. That is going to pull every infected person in the bunker toward the shaft again. It also means the bunker might become quieter in other sectors. That can help me move, but only if the sound does not bring bodies into my path first. I pull my bunker map out again and orient it to the wall markings. The utility room sits near the Sector 4 boundary and near a secondary corridor loop that leads to a stairwell shown as service access up to Sector 1. If I can reach that stairwell from here, I might be able to move upward without crossing the main corridor that is clogged near the shaft. I also might be able to observe the people above without stepping into the open concourse. I do not want contact. Contact means noise, negotiation, risk, and later betrayal. I learned that in the first week when groups formed and broke apart fast. I decide to move toward the stairwell while the voices above keep the infected persons occupied at the shaft. Before I leave, I take one small action in the utility room. I flip the ventilation damper breaker off and on once, quick, just to see if the indicator changes. It does. The indicator brightens for a moment, then returns to steady. That tells me the circuit is responsive. It also tells me I can potentially control ventilation without cutting power completely. I shut the panel door and move on. The corridor outside the utility room is dim and narrow. Water is ankle-deep and cold. The emergency strip light overhead buzzes faintly. I step carefully and listen. The trench sounds are behind me now, distant, mixed with the larger bunker noise. The human voices above are louder now, and they carry down the structure in waves. I hear a loud laugh once, short, then a sharp command tone. One man directing another man. That alone tells me enough about the group above. They are not whispering. They are not moving carefully. They will pull the whole building toward them. As I move toward the stairwell route, the emergency lighting flickers again. This time it flickers longer, maybe 2 seconds. The corridor plunges into grey dark, then returns. In that brief dark, I hear a wet splash close by. That splash was not mine. An infected person is near, moving in the darkness, guided by sound, not sight. When the lights return, I see him, 10 feet ahead, turned partly toward me, head tilted, arms loose. The flicker gave him confidence to move. He heard my steps during the dark, and now he has a direction. I stop and hold still. Movement triggers him faster than sound does. He sways and takes one dragging step. I need him to drift away, not lock onto me. I reach into my pocket and pinch a small screw head between my fingers. I roll it along the floor to the left, toward a door frame. Not hard enough to ring, enough to click twice. The infected person turns toward that click. His feet drag that way. I stay pressed against the wall, then slide past him on the right when his head turns fully away. The stairwell door is ahead, metal and heavy, with a rubber seal. I put my hand on it and feel a faint vibration. That means bodies are moving on the other side, not running, drifting. I put my ear near the door seam. I hear multiple shuffles, close, and the occasional bump of a shoulder into the wall. The stairwell is not empty. It is a vertical tunnel. Vertical tunnels collect infected persons. They drift in and get stuck because they follow sound up and down without understanding stairs. I do not open that door. Opening it would release those bodies into my corridor and trap me. I back away and look for another route on the map. There is a service access hatch that connects to the stairwell at a higher landing, reachable through a maintenance duct that runs parallel. It is worse than the stairwell door, but it might bypass the cluster. I move along the corridor to find the hatch. The voices above continue, and now I hear something else. A rising chorus of shuffling near the shaft as the infected persons tighten around the sound. I find the hatch half buried behind fallen insulation panels and broken wallboard. The hatch is bolted shut. I kneel and use the compact pry bar I took upstairs, sliding it under the bolt plate. I apply steady pressure, not jerking. Jerking makes noise. The bolt plate flexes, then pops with a dull snap. The sound is small, but sharp. I freeze and listen. A faint shuffle answers from the corridor behind me. One infected person has turned toward the sound. I cannot stay kneeling in the open. I pull the hatch open enough to slip in, then push it closed behind me without latching. Inside is a narrow duct, dry for now, with dust on the floor. The air is warmer, and it smells like old insulation and metal. I crawl forward, moving slow so my knees do not drum. After a few feet, I reach a grate that looks down into the stairwell landing. I peer through and see 3 infected persons standing on the landing, heads angled upward. They are listening to the voices above. Their bodies sway, and one of them bumps the railing. The stairwell goes up into darkness. No power in the mall above, but faint daylight might reach the upper levels through broken glass. The infected persons are facing up, not down. That gives me a narrow window. I slide the grate open slowly. It squeaks. The squeak is quiet but hateful to my ears. All three heads snap toward it at once. I freeze with my body halfway out, and the infected persons take one slow step toward the grate. They are close enough that if I drop down, I land in their reach. I pull back into the duct and close the grate again. The infected persons below bump the wall and drift. My heart pounds hard in my chest and I have to clamp my jaw to keep my teeth from clicking. The stairwell route is blocked. The utility room route got me around the crowd, but it did not get me upward. That means my next moves are underground. Power source, pump control, sealed Sector 4 boundary. I have to solve one of those or accept that I will live in a wet maze until I make one mistake. I crawl back through the duct and slip out into the corridor. The voices above are louder now. I hear boots stomping on broken tile. I hear a metal scrape that repeats as if someone is dragging a chain or moving a tool chest. The infected persons respond in waves. The corridor around me begins to fill with distant shuffling again as bodies converge toward the shaft. The crowd movement is becoming a tide. I use that tide. I move back toward my storage room while the infected persons shift away from my sector. When I reach my storage room, I find the tape on the door handle still intact. No one opened it. That calms me for half a breath. I slip inside and shut the door. Then I hear the first real catastrophe sound of the day down in the bunker, not above. A deep mechanical groan, then a sudden rush of water. It comes from the direction of the trench. The groan is not a body hitting a wall. It is a pressure change in a pipe or a gate. The sound lasts several seconds. Then the corridor water level near my door begins to rise by a small amount, creeping higher against the base of the door. I kneel and press my fingers to the gap under the door to feel the flow. Water is moving faster now. Something changed in the drainage system. It could be that the people above shifted debris and opened a path for water to surge into a lower level. It could be that the structure settled and cracked a pipe. It could be that the bunker's own water control gate shifted. It does not matter what caused it. What matters is the direction. If water rises, my dry pocket becomes wet. Wet turns into skin breakdown, infection risk, and gear damage. It also turns walking into louder movement. I pull the bunker map out and look at the sump pump labels again. The sump breakers in the utility room were off. If water is rising now and pumps are off, the bunker can reflood. The first flood did not drown infected persons. It did drown electronics and supplies. If water rises again, it will ruin what is left that is dry. It will also push infected persons into new corridors, and some will end up trapped behind doors I use. That can turn my safe route into a dead end. I make a decision that tastes bad. I have to risk starting a sump pump, but I have to do it in a controlled way, and I have to be ready for the noise. I pack essential supplies fast and quiet. First aid case, water tablets, gloves, plastic sheeting, 2 food bars, tape, pen light. I leave anything bulky. I keep the axe and 2 knives on my belt. I leave the cart. The cart will become an anchor if water rises and corridors clog. I open the storage room door a crack. The corridor water is now mid-ankle and moving, a slow current in a space that should not have current. That confirms it. Something is feeding water into this sector. I step out and move toward the utility room by memory and tape markers, keeping my pace steady so I do not splash loud. The voices above continue, but now they are mixed with a new sound, a long rumble from the collapse shaft as debris shifts again. Dust falls from the ceiling in a light drift. The emergency lights flicker once more. At the utility room door, I listen before entering. I hear no infected persons nearby. The crowd is still pulled toward the shaft by the loud people. That gives me a narrow window. I slip into the utility room and shut the door. The panel is where I left it. I open it and put my fingers on the sump breaker labeled 1. I pause and listen again, trying to predict the noise. Pumps are loud. Pumps create vibration. Vibration travels through walls. Infected persons respond to vibration too, not only sound. I flip the breaker on, in one smooth motion. Nothing happens for a second. Then a deep thrum starts under my feet. The thrum rises into a mechanical roar, low and steady, and I feel the wall panel vibrate. The sound is not sharp, but it is strong. It will pull infected persons. It might pull them from the shaft crowd into this sector. The pump continues, and I hear water moving faster in the pipes, a rushing sound behind the walls. I wait by the door with my axe ready, not to fight, to survive the first wave if it comes. I count slow in my head. 1 minute. 2. The pump keeps running. The water level under the door does not rise anymore. It holds steady. After another minute, the current in the corridor begins to slow. The pump is doing something. That is good. It is also pulling attention. A soft bump hits the utility room door from the corridor side. Then another bump, closer together. The pump is doing its job and also calling infected persons toward me. I stand still and listen to their feet in the water outside. One infected person drags close to the door, then bumps it with a shoulder and slides off. Another infected person follows the vibration and bumps the wall beside the door. The door seal holds. I keep my breathing slow. I do not want to leave the pump running long. Long draw might drain batteries or overload the system if power is limited. I also do not want a crowd forming in my sector. I flip the breaker off after a few minutes. The pump winds down with a fading thrum. Silence returns in layers. The infected persons outside stop bumping and drift, confused when the vibration ends. Some wander back toward other sounds. The door vibrates less. The lights hold steady. That tells me the system can handle a short pump run without collapsing. I open the utility room door a fraction and look out. 2 infected persons stand a few feet away, heads tilted, listening for the pump that stopped. They do not see me yet because I keep my body behind the door edge. I roll a small nut down the corridor away from my path. It clicks softly. One infected person turns and drifts. The other follows. I slip out and shut the door without letting it click. As I move back toward my storage room sector, I feel the floor vibrate again, not from a pump, from above. A heavy impact, then a second. The voices above spike, one man shouting in panic, then cutting off. That is followed by a long sliding scrape and a crash that echoes down into the bunker. The infected persons everywhere respond. The tide shifts hard toward the collapse shaft again. The bunker becomes a moving body field. I stop at a corner and press myself into shadow. I hear infected persons moving past, water splashing around their legs, shoulder bumps against the wall, hands scraping concrete. The corridor becomes clogged for a moment, then unclogs as bodies push toward the louder sound. I catch a glimpse down the main corridor toward the shaft, and I see more infected persons than before, packed tight, some pressed into the walls, some pressed into each other, all angled toward the collapse opening. The sound above must be huge now, big enough to pull almost everything. I use that pull to make another move. While the main corridors are clogged toward the shaft, my side corridors clear for short windows. I move fast but controlled to my storage room, then past it, toward the communications room and the power room. If the people above are doing something reckless, the structure might fail again. The emergency lights below are a hint that this bunker was meant to be used during disasters, but it cannot handle everything. If another floor collapses, it could open water routes again and drop debris into the bunker corridors. In the power room, I check the inverter display again. The charge bar is lower than before. The pump run drained it a bit. That is fine if charging continues. It is bad if charging stops. I scan the labels and find a switch labeled Load Shed Level 2. It is already enabled. That means the bunker is running on limited circuits. I find another label for rooftop feed again, still locked behind a plate. If rooftop feed is solar, and if panels exist, charging might be steady during daylight. If rooftop feed is damaged, batteries are dying. The sound from above shifts from voices and impacts to a new sound that makes my stomach tighten. A vehicle engine, faint at first, then louder, then struggling. Someone above is trying to start a truck, maybe one of the military trucks in the concourse, maybe another vehicle. The engine coughs and revs, then stalls, then revs again. Each rev is a siren to infected persons. The crowd near the shaft will surge and press toward the noise. If the vehicle moves, it can shake debris loose and cause more collapse. I stand in the power room and feel the floor vibrate from the engine rever. The emergency lights flicker again, longer this time. The inverter hum changes pitch for a moment, then returns. The system is under stress. If the engine rev causes a major power drop, the bunker corridors could go dark. Moving in darkness with flooded floors and infected persons is a quick way to fall, get pinned, and lose control. I need a fallback. I need to relocate my safe pocket to a place that can stay dry even if pumps stop and lights fail. That pushes me toward the one area I have avoided, Sector 4 boundary. Sealed Sector 4 might hold a higher dry area or a secondary power compartment. It might also hold flooded rooms full of trapped infected persons. The warning note said, "Do not open Sector 4. That warning might mean contamination, or it might mean too many bodies trapped. Either way, it is a gamble. The engine revs again, louder now, and this time it does not stall immediately. The vibration spreads through the bunker walls. I decide I cannot wait. I move back to the utility room corridor and follow the wall marking toward the Sector 4 door. The door is heavy, double sealed, with a wheel lock and a keypad that is dark. A stencil on the wall beside it reads, "Restricted access." Another stencil reads "Quarantine staging." That word hits me because I heard it thrown around during the first days with no clear meaning. People said quarantine zones. People said quarantine measures. Now I am standing in a government bunker door with that word painted on concrete, and I have no assurance what it means inside. I put my ear near the door seam. I hear nothing. No shuffles, no bump, no drip. That can mean empty. It can also mean flooded deep enough that sound is muffled. I test the wheel lock. It turns a fraction, then stops hard. It is locked with a mechanical stop, not only a latch. I do not have keys. I do have a pry bar and time, but not much time, and prying a sealed quarantine door will make noise. The engine above revs again. Then I hear a loud crunch, metal against concrete, followed by shouting. The shouting is not calm. It is fear and anger. That sound triggers a wave of movement in the bunker. The corridor behind me fills with shuffling again, as infected persons tighten toward the shaft. Some drift into this sector too, pulled by the vibration. I hear feet in the water behind me, closer. I cannot stand at the Sector 4 door any longer. I retreat into the utility room, shut the door, and wedge it again with the cinder block. Inside the utility room, I can breathe without bodies brushing me. I stand with my back to the wall and listen to the bunker roar outside, the slow, constant movement of infected persons responding to the chaos above. Then, I hear a new catastrophic sound, sharp and unmistakable even through concrete. Gunfire. Not close, but close enough that it echoes down the collapse shaft. Single pops, then a short string of pops. Whoever is above brought a firearm into a packed, echoing mall. That will pull every infected person in the building. The infected response below is immediate. The shuffling becomes a rush. Bodies hit walls hard. A door somewhere slams or fails. Water splashes louder. The sound is moving toward the shaft in a wave. The wave is so large that it creates pressure in the corridors. A physical feeling of mass moving through tight space. That kind of movement can push infected persons into my sector, even if they were not heading here. They will spill into any corridor open to them. The utility room door takes a hard hit. Not a gentle bump, a shoulder slam. The cinder block shifts and scrapes on the floor. My hands tighten on the axe handle. I do not swing. I stand to the side of the door and let the seal and door frame do their job. Another hit, then another. It is not one infected person. It is multiple bodies pressed by the crowd flow. The door vibrates. Dust shakes loose again. I look around for a second exit again. The service hatch in the back wall is still there, screws still in place. I pull out my toolkit and choose a screwdriver. My hands are steady enough. I start backing out screws slowly, turning each one with controlled pressure so it does not squeal. The door takes another hit. The cinder block shifts again. I get 2 screws out, then 3, then 4. The hatch plate loosens. I pull it free and see a tight cable chase behind it, dry with a faint draft. I do not have time to pack neatly. I push my pack through first, then slide my body through, axe in hand, scraping my shoulder on the metal frame. I pull my legs in and leave the hatch open behind me. I do not have time to put it back. The cable chase is narrow and full of bundled lines in conduit trays. I crawl forward, following the draft, hoping it leads to a secondary access corridor rather than a dead end. Behind me, the utility room door takes another hit, then a dull crack. The crack might be the cinder block shifting again. It might be the latch bending. I do not wait to learn which. The cable chase bends and opens into a low-maintenance corridor I have not seen yet. The floor is dry here. Dry as a relief so strong I almost stumble from the change. The corridor lights are dim, but present. That tells me this sector is on the same emergency circuit and still stable. I stand and move forward in a crouch, keeping my head low. Ahead, the corridor ends at a heavy door with a painted number. A small window in the door shows darkness on the other side and a faint pulse of green emergency light. I press my ear near the door. I hear nothing. I crack it open a fraction. Cool air moves through, dry and clean. That air smells more like stored plastic and less like wet concrete. That is the air of a sealed compartment. I slip through and close the door behind me. The room beyond is larger than the utility room and shaped more like a staging bay. Pallets sit stacked along one wall, wrapped in plastic. Metal shelves line the other wall, some holding sealed cases, some empty. The floor is dry and clean compared to the rest of the bunker. Overhead, a vent fan runs at low speed, a steady whir that I can barely hear. That fan means ventilation is active here. That fan also means this room is part of the system that has been kept alive on limited power. I stand still and listen for infected persons. I hear nothing close. The loud chaos from the shaft is distant now, muffled by walls and distance. I move deeper into the staging bay and check the pallets. One pallet holds bottled water in sealed cases. Another holds food bars and sealed meal packs. Another holds medical supply cases. I do not assume it is endless. I do assume it is valuable, and I assume someone above will eventually find a way down here if the lights stay on. I find a wall panel near the far side of the bay, similar to the power room panel but smaller. It has indicator lights, all green, and one label that makes my pulse jump. Rooftop feed active. The label is printed. The indicator is lit. That means charging is happening through a rooftop link. That strongly points to solar or to a roof generator connected to a small circuit. Either way, daylight matters. I do not open the panel yet. I focus on immediate safety. I pick a corner of the bay away from doors and away from the vent draft. I lay my plastic sheeting down on the floor as a moisture barrier. I set my pack on it. I sit with my back against the wall and keep the axe across my lap. My hands are shaking now, not from fear talk, from adrenaline and tension that has been held too long. I breathe slow until it eases. Then I hear it. A faint scrape on the other side of the door I came through, not the one I sealed behind me. Another door on the bay's opposite wall. The scrape repeats, then stops. I stand and step toward it, careful, and put my ear near the seam. A soft, wet sound comes from the other side, a mouth sound, then a drag. Infected persons are near this bay too, maybe in an adjacent corridor. They have not entered. The door might be sealed. If it is sealed, it is a barrier. If it fails, this bay becomes a trap. The gunfire above continues in short bursts, then stops, then starts again. The sound echoes down the shaft and the bunker answers with movement. The infected persons outside this bay door scrape again, more urgently now, responding to the distant pops. Their bodies press the door. The door holds. I step back and check the latch. It is heavy, designed to resist pressure. I do not open it. I do not even touch it again. I move back to the wall panel and make the decision I avoided earlier. If this bay is tied into rooftop feed, I need to reduce anything that draws attention and keep power stable. I open the wall panel carefully. Inside are labeled switches. Lights bay, lights corridor, ventilation bay, outlet bank. There is also a small meter showing incoming charge. The meter needle is not at 0. That means power is coming in now, in daylight. I flip lights bay down one step, dimming half the overhead strips until the bay is darker but still usable. I leave ventilation on. I leave the corridor light on low. I shut the outlet bank off for now. I do not need to charge devices this minute. I need this bay to stay quiet and unnoticed. The result is immediate in the room. The hum lowers slightly. The light becomes softer. Shadows deepen along the pallets. That helps me hide, and it helps conserve charge. It also means if someone above is watching for light leaks through the hole, this bay becomes less obvious. I return to my corner and sit again, listening. The door scrape outside continues on and off as infected persons react to the distant gunfire and shifting noise. Then, after a long stretch, the gunfire above stops completely. The shouting becomes frantic for a moment, then fades. I hear a long sliding sound again, something heavy being dragged, then a crash, then a silence that feels dangerous. Silence after chaos means someone either left or someone got cornered, or someone is trying to hide. A new sound arrives minutes later. Water rushing again, louder this time, deeper in the bunker. The earlier pump run prevented my sector from flooding further, but the structure above is changing. If the truck moved and broke barriers, it might have opened a new water path into the collapse shaft. The bunker could reflood from above, not only through trenches. I stand and check the bay floor edges. Dry still. That buys time. I decide to move essential supplies from my old storage room into this staging bay. This bay is drier, has ventilation, has confirmed rooftop feed, and is away from the main crowd corridor near the shaft. Moving supplies is risky, but leaving supplies scattered is worse. I pack light and prepare for a short run. I take one sealed water case, not the whole pallet, and set it near my corner. I take 2 food packs and set them aside. Then I move to the door I came through and crack it open to listen. The corridor outside is quieter than before, but not empty. I hear distant dragging and occasional bumps. The crowd is still drawn to the shaft, but the sharp gunfire stimulus is gone. That means infected persons might drift back into the network and spread again. I slip out, closing the door behind me, and move along the maintenance corridor back toward my original routes, using tape markers where I placed them earlier. The lights flicker once during the walk, then stabilize. That flicker tells me the system is stressed but not dead. At the junction near my storage room, I find the corridor water lower than before. The pump run did its job. The current is gone. That is a relief, but I do not take it as a win. Water can return fast. I open my storage room door and find it intact. Tape marker still in place. I grab the first aid case if I left it here. Extra water tablets, extra gloves, and a few food bars. I keep it small. I put everything into my pack and leave the rest. I do not have time to haul. On the way back, I run into a new problem. A door that was closed earlier is now open, and an infected person stands in the doorway, half in shadow, half in corridor light. The head turns toward my movement. I freeze. He takes a slow step forward. I cannot retreat far without entering a louder corridor, and I cannot pass close without risk. I need a distraction that does not ring. I reach into my pocket and pull out the cloth tape roll. I peel a short strip, fold it sticky side out into a small wad, and flick it into the water behind the infected person. It lands with a dull plop. Dull is good. The infected person turns toward the plop and drags a step that way. I move past in the opposite direction, hugging the wall so my shoulder does not brush his arm. My boot slips slightly on algae film, and I catch myself fast. The slip makes a small splash. The infected person snaps his head toward me again. I do not freeze this time. I move forward, faster, committing to distance. The infected person follows for several steps, dragging feet louder, then slows as the corridor noise and other sounds steal his focus. I keep moving without looking back. Back in the staging bay, I shut the door and set my pack down. I stack the supplies in a neat row, keeping sealed items high and away from the floor. I check the bay door seams again, making sure no infected person has pushed the opposite door open. The scrape sound outside that door is quieter now. The infected persons are still there, but not pressing hard. I sit and finally eat a full food bar, chewing slow, watching the door. My mouth is dry. I drink small sips and wipe my glasses again. The vent fan keeps running. The rooftop feed indicator stays lit. This bay is the first place since the outbreak began where I can feel a system around me that is not collapsing immediately. It is not safe. It is stable for now. That is all I need. After eating, I make another hard choice. I need to learn what happened above with the trucks and the people. If they are still in the mall, they can find their way into the bunker. If they leave, they might still leave doors open and draw infected persons into new corridors. Either way, the collapse shaft area controls the movement patterns down here. I cannot ignore it. I decide to observe it from below without stepping into the main crowd corridor. I use the maintenance corridor and the cable chase route again, moving slow, listening for infected persons in tight spaces. I avoid the trench route where the half-submerged infected person is trapped. I mark that route as red on my mental map. I reach a spot near the collapse shaft where the corridor wall has a crack line and a broken vent that opens into a service cavity. From there, I can see a slice of the shaft area without exposing myself fully. The scene below the shaft is crowded with infected persons, more than before, packed tight in the corridor near the access point. The floor is wet and churned from bodies dragging through. Some infected persons bump the wall and then settle. Others sway in place. Their heads are angled upward, toward the shaft. Above them, light shifts in a pattern that suggests daylight moving through smoke or dust. I cannot see the people directly from this angle, but I can hear faint movement from above, occasional metal clinks, and once, a single low moan that sounds human, not infected. That moan stops quickly. Then I hear something that makes my stomach drop. The military truck engine revs again, closer, and this time it is sustained. The sound is rough and strained, but it runs. The vibration travels down the shaft and through the bunker walls. The infected persons below respond, pressing tighter, bumping, pushing. The corridor becomes a crush zone. If the truck moves and the floor above shifts again, debris can fall into the shaft and into the corridors below. I pull back from the vent opening and retreat fast, not running, but moving with urgency. A heavy crash follows, then a long tearing sound, concrete and metal failing together. The bunker lights flicker hard. The corridor goes dark for a full second. In that second, I hear bodies fall in the corridor near the shaft. Infected persons bumping and collapsing into each other. When the lights return, the hum is different. It is higher pitch, strained. I keep moving back to the staging bay without stopping. When I reach the staging bay, the rooftop feed indicator is still lit, but the charge meter needle is lower. The system took a hit. The collapse event above likely shook connections or forced the system into protective mode. I close the panel and keep loads low, leaving only ventilation and minimal lights. I sit with my axe and listen to the bunker settle. The infected movement outside the bay door increases again as the new noise wave pulls them into motion. The scrape becomes steady, then turns into occasional heavy bumps. The door holds. I stay in the bay for what feels like hours, tracking sound patterns, waiting for the movement tide to ease. My thoughts stay practical. Water level, power stability, door integrity, exit routes. I keep checking my gloves and sleeves for tears. I keep wiping my hands on a cloth and keeping them away from my face. I do not know how long infected persons remain active. I do not know if the infection spreads only through bites or through fluid contact or through something else. I saw enough in the first week to believe fluid contact is danger. That is enough. I treat every reach as contaminated. I treat every wet smear as a hazard. Near the end of the day, the sounds above fade. No more engine rev. No more shouting. No more impacts. The infected persons below drift, then settle into quieter patterns. That tells me the group above either left or went silent. It also tells me the bunker might regain a stable load cycle. The rooftop feed indicator remains lit. The vent fan remains on. For the first time since I came down, I allow myself to close my eyes for several minutes, not sleeping deep, just resting my muscles while my ears stay active. A soft clink wakes me, not a drip, not a bump. A metal-on-metal clink close to the bay, from the corridor side of the door I entered through. I sit up fast and hold still. The clink repeats, then stops. A human tool sound. Someone is in the maintenance corridor near my bay. Not infected. Infected persons do not make that kind of controlled clink. I do not move. I do not breathe loud. I keep my axe ready, but I do not plan to swing unless a door opens and a body enters my space. The corridor goes quiet again. Then I hear a soft whisper, too faint for words. Then a cough that is suppressed but still audible. A person is out there, close, trying to be quiet, failing. That person might have followed the emergency lights down. That person might be part of the earlier group above, now separated and desperate. That person might also be looking for supplies and will force doors. Forcing doors in this bunker draws infected persons. If a person forces this bay door, infected persons behind him might follow. If I open the door to speak, sound travels. Either choice has consequences. I stay silent. Silence is my best tool. I shift my weight slowly and move toward the wall panel. I keep my footsteps soft on the plastic sheeting. I reach the panel and flip the bay lights down another step until the room is almost dark, keeping only a faint glow near the floor. I keep ventilation on. I keep the rooftop feed intact. I make the bay less visible through any cracks. Then, I crouch behind a pallet stack, using it as cover from the door line. Outside, the person's breathing grows louder for a moment, then fades. A hand brushes the door lightly, metal scraping once against the latch plate, then stopping. The door does not move. The person does not slam it. That suggests caution. Then, I hear a footstep splash in shallow water, followed by a dragged step that does not match a healthy human gait. The person might have stepped near infected persons. The infected persons might be drifting close behind him. I keep still and listen until the sounds move away down the corridor. The bay stays dark. The vent fan keeps running. My hands stay tight on the axe handle. I do not know who that person is. I do not know what he will do next. I do know that the bunker is now a shared space, and shared spaces in the first month turn dangerous fast, not only from infected persons, but from people chasing power and supplies with no patience left. And that's where we'll stop for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me how the story hit you, what moments worked, what didn't, and what you'd want to hear next. And a big thank you to everyone supporting the channel. You keep this project alive. Until next time, Survivor. Jack's Nightmares, signing off.